So today, let's go ahead and start in a child's pose with your pillows or your bolster toward the front. You might want to add a blanket underneath your knees. If you have kind of really tight hips, your hamstrings aren't super happy with you today, you might add this other blanket behind the knees so that when you get settled into your child's pose, you have a little cushion back here. But we're going to drape our bodies over our soft, squishy thing. And you can keep the hips a little high. When we take the arms, you can either cactus them, or if you want to hug your pillows, or if you want to turn the palms up, you can even stack the palms. And we'll kind of take one side of the cheek, either left or right, you choose. We'll make sure to turn halfway through. We'll make sure you have a lot of space here. So take your knees nice and wide, the belly will drop. You'll feel your upper body being supported by your bolster. And then start to pull your shoulders down away from the ears. Let's just establish a slow rhythm of breath to begin with. Take a regular inhale through the nose. Let that breath go. And then we'll start to deepen. Full breath into the nose, fill everything up. Open mouth, exhale, let that release. Do that again, breath in, puff up the back body. Open mouth, exhale. And seal your lips. Take your time with your breath. You can really lean your upper body, your head into your bolster. Soften your belly here. Let it hang between the thighs. We'll do a slow scan through the body. We'll start from the crown, move down. Relaxing the space between the eyebrows and the cheeks. Keep a little separation between your top and your bottom teeth. Relax the throat. Make sure there's plenty of room for the breath to travel through the nose, down the back of the throat, into the lungs. You're going to feel some subtle movement here since your chest and your belly are starting to hang down toward your bolsters. You might feel the rebound of your bolster pushing back up against the body as you breathe in, allowing the back body to puff and expand. And as you exhale, everything getting a little bit closer, softening, a little heavier. Notice along the back of the neck where you might be feeling some tension, some tightness. And keep the shoulders relaxed. Feel the length here of the spine as the hips drop toward the heels. Notice when sensations are happening in the hips. One side feel more open than the other. Do you feel balanced left to right? And we have some compression happening through the legs by bending the knees and sitting back toward the heels. So you might feel a little compression behind the knees into the hamstring. You might feel some stretch on the top of your ankles. And if you notice that anything is unbearably uncomfortable, feel free to shift. But if the discomfort is stretch kind of sensation, a lengthening, and untangling. And we want to try to stay with those sensations and see where time and gravity take us. And stay with whichever cheek you're on right now for 3 more breaths. Before we switch the cheeks, let's go ahead and rise up on the hands and knees. Take some movement from here. It doesn't necessarily have to be cat-cow, but whatever you had noticed in your body scan, move in a direction that'll allow those tight spots, those spaces that feel uneven. Just get a little bit of wiggle or movement, twist. And when you're ready to start settling back into your child's pose, readjust any way that you need with your props. And we'll relax the opposite cheek onto your bolster. So a lot of our yoga practice, whether it's a flowing practice or if it's something softer, yin or restorative, we want to be able to tune in to the awareness of the body. And a lot of times we don't notice certain things until we've been instructed to take notice of them. So if you noticed one hip was different from the other, whether it's in how open it feels or if it's higher or lower, sometimes we don't notice those things when we're kind of standing and sitting throughout the day because we tend to fall into certain patterns physically in our body to the point that that becomes the norm. So for example, I tend to cross my legs when I sit and I lean onto my right hip a lot. And I don't know why the right hip, but I just have done it so many times over so many years that I always seem to be a little bit wonky on the right side of my hip. And of course, your hips are connected into the legs. Your hips are connecting into your spine through the pelvis. And so then you start to have this chain reaction along the body where certain things on that side become a little more off. And you may not notice these things in the beginning. And the older I get, I'm starting to notice more because little pops, cracks. I always now need to pop my right hip when I wake up. Otherwise, it just feels off. Certain movements starting on the right side feel a little weird. And so by adding this extra layer of attention and awareness, I'm starting to notice where in my yoga practice, which is meant to try to balance things out, that my right side will open in certain ways really big. And sometimes it also feels locked in ways where I feel like it's stuck. It can't move in certain ways. So this is a good time, especially in these really long held poses, that you have the time already carved out to do that body scan, to take notice of what is feeling good, what's not feeling good. so that you can start to make those mental notes of what is kind of your base norm. And if something's already a little bit off in your base norm, you're going to notice when it's really, really off down the line. So we start to make these little mental notes so that when something really, truly needs our attention, say there's an injury or there's illness, there's something that just feels really off, you notice it much more quickly. So let's think about why we don't notice certain things in a certain amount of time. And it's really in how we approach discomfort. We tolerate certain discomfort more than we tolerate others. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we had a strong reaction to the discomfort of suddenly having our social world cut off. You got to make huge changes. You couldn't just go out to the store when you wanted to, go out to eat when you wanted to. And so there were huge reactions and emotions that swung through that type of experience. Slowly over time, we started to tolerate that discomfort. And then something new comes up. And they say you have to start wearing masks. Well, it's not part of our norm to wear masks. Having a piece of cloth covering your mouth and your nose, that's uncomfortable. And you could see some people reacted violently to that type of change. And for others, there was a higher tolerance level. So, how we react to discomfort in our yoga practice is part of our training here, part of the practice of learning how to be in our own bodies. And the stuff that feels good, we want it to keep feeling good. And the stuff that makes us feel uncomfortable, we either need to learn how to make it more comfortable, or we learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's take a few more breaths here. And then we'll gently start to come back up, move slowly. Come back to that hands and knees. And again, just taking organic movements here. Whatever you need to do to kind of undo any spots that felt tight, that needed a little bit more opening. And we're going to move our bolster or pillows out of the way for now. And you can keep the blanket under the knees if that feels okay. And we're going to thread the needle. So we're going to start with your right arm. We're going to float it up. Find a big expanse across the chest and start to slide it underneath your left armpit and down toward the floor. Drop the ear and shoulder. And if it feels okay, maybe walk your left arm forward, but then soften the elbow. So we'll make it a little bit more of a relaxed stretch on that left side instead of making a very active, energetic stretch. If you feel your hips swaying a lot over to the left, we'll just drag it over to the right, just a hair. Again, soften, relax the elbow. The head will get nice and heavy. We'll stay here for 3. And then bring your left hand back underneath you. We'll press into the floor, open right arm to the sky. And then release your right hand. Let's go to the other side. Left arm floats up. Slide it all the way through. Get close to the floor. Extend your right arm and then relax into it. Last breath here. And bring your right hand back underneath you, press to the ground, float the left arm up, and we'll gently release. All right, let's come to a seat. And we're gonna take our blanket, one of them, we're gonna fold it just one more time so it's a little bit higher. And we're gonna bring it underneath your sits bones so that it lifts your seat a little. And then we'll extend your legs forward. If this already feels kind of tight in the backs of the legs, what I recommend is take your other blanket, roll it up so you can slide it under the knees. And that'll keep a little bend underneath here. So the blanket that's under your seat, that's gonna allow for your sits bones to lift, and then you're gonna be able to kind of come just to the edge of here so that your pelvis tips forward. And you can kind of rock back and forth and feel the difference here. So this is with my tailbone kind of slumping down toward the blanket. This is getting the tailbone free and away from me so that my bones are taking more of the weight and I'm able to tilt it forward. So we're just gonna stay here with extended legs, breathing into the backs of the legs here. Hands can rest on top of the thighs, or if you prefer them on the floor. Soften your shoulders down away from you and close the eyes. I want to start with the sensations behind the legs, whether you have that blanket rolled under the knees or not. Feel how your body wants to react sitting upright. Sometimes the longer we sit, the shoulders will start to slump or our head will start to drop because that's kind of our normal computer stance or like slump into the couch stance. So try to stay long through the spine. Work more of the sensation into the backs of the legs. Follow the breath. Feeling the breath come in, expanding. Breath goes out, contraction. Three more inhales here. Okay, we're going to start to take a lean forward. So you can bring the hands to the floor and just start to lean the heart forward. If you don't feel much sensation yet, because you're a little bit more open in the backs of the legs, keep going. Lean, lean, lean until you get to a place where you feel like, ooh, this is beyond what my legs really want or what my back wants. So you can kind of play with where your starting point is. We'll be staying here for about 15 more breaths. So you've got a little bit of time here that if by breath 3, breath 5, your body wants more, feel free to continue moving your fold a little deeper. If you get to a place where you're gritting your teeth the whole time, you've gone too far, feel free to back it up. And you might notice while we're here what happens in the pelvis. Sometimes we might end up back in that slump where the low back starts to round and your tailbone gets closer to the floor. Keep that weight forward into the sits bones, rocking the pelvis forward. Last 5 breaths in. And gently walk yourself back up. All right, we're gonna keep our left leg extended. You're gonna bend your right knee. If your blanket's kind of blocking the way, you might just slide it over so that you can bring your right foot closer in. We're gonna take a seated twist to the right. So right hand's gonna find the floor behind you, or you can always bring a block or a bolster if the floor feels really far. And then we'll hug your right knee into the chest with the left arm. This doesn't have to be a super deep twist where you're trying to wring out your organs. I just want to get some movement from the low back, twisting into the mid back. Take one more breath here. Gently release. And switch up the legs. So right leg's gonna be long. Left knee will bend. We'll bring it closer in. We'll bring your left hand behind. Right arm will hug the knee in. One more breath here. Release out of our twist. Slide this blanket out from underneath if you had it there. Extend both legs. Just gonna bend through the knees, windshield wiper the feet. We'll come into a cross-legged seat of your choice. You can add props under the knees if this isn't super comfortable. Let's get into the neck here. We're going to start by just dropping your chin down toward the chest. We're going to just take gentle rolls, right ear toward the right shoulder. Bringing the chin back to center. And then left ear toward the left shoulder. So do that a couple times, moving about this pace. And I want you to start making just little notes of where already along this path that you might want a little extra time or a little extra attention. And then the next time you start moving back over to the right, I want you to do it really slowly. And you might get to a place along this right side that already feels a little yuck or a little tight. And you might explore some movement in that one spot. Little circles are good. A little kind of back and forth rocking is good. Turning the chin down, turning the chin up might get you some extra movement where you need it. And then once you make it all the way over to the right, take your time if you're not already there. You're welcome to add the weight of your right hand on top of your left ear. I don't want to use this hand for kind of pulling the head over. It's just a little added weight. And if this doesn't feel good, then skip this part. Your head already weighs a lot, and we can just let gravity do its thing. Now, as you're here, if you're starting to feel anything in the front part of the chest on the left side, you might palpate just underneath the collarbone and pushing in toward the chest wall and dragging the tissue down. And that might get you a stretch right in the front part of the neck if that's where you need it. You can also push outward. That'll get you kind of this line of pec on the left side. Or you might palpate for the back of the left side of the neck. And you can do little finger taps back there. If you hit a big knot, kind of just roll it, circles. So whatever else you need to add, always stay here. We'll be here for about 5 more breaths. If you use your right hand in any way, on the top of the head or along the left side of the body, we'll release. And then let's slowly roll the head back to center. Let's stay in center for a moment. Slide the shoulder blades back so you can accentuate the stretch in the front of the chest, moving into the back of the body. If you want a little more weight on top of the head, you can lace the fingers at the back of the skull, letting your elbows come forward and down. If you have the hands behind the head, go ahead and release. I'm going to take a really slow roll over toward the left. And again, if you find any little spot that needs a little extra love, a little extra movement, feel free to pause and explore. Once you get all the way over to the left side, we'll keep that left ear heavy, reaching toward the shoulder. We'll just let the weight of the head here, or maybe a little added weight on top of the head with your left hand. We'll give this a few breaths. If there's anything that's along the front of the body into the right pec, maybe moving into that space just under the collarbone and dragging the fascia down and getting into the back of the neck. Got a few breaths here. And then we'll release any left arm stuff you've added. We'll roll the head back through center. And then we'll slowly lift the head up through center. Stay sitting tall here for a moment. Notice any lingering sensations along the neck, maybe even stretching to the upper back. I'm going to blink the eyes open. Let's set up for a nice big heart opener. I'm going to give you a few options that you can play with. Option A, if you have a bolster or a couple of pillows that are firm, you want to make sure that they can actually hold you. You can come into a really nice big heart opener over it horizontally. I like to keep a little blanket back here because I always feel like the back of my neck just takes all the weight. But you'll roll the spine over the bolster so that the backs of the shoulders can start to reach toward the floor. And this is a great place to cactus the arms if that feels okay. You can ground through the feet wide, knees together. Kind of release some low back stuff. Or if your hips are feeling tight and you want more opening, you can bring feet together and knees out. Or you can keep it just nice and neutral. Feet, knees, hips with distance. All right, so that one's a really big one, just depending on the size of your bolster. A little more subtle and a little more precise is to take your rolled up blanket that's in a cylinder and go long ways so that your spine will rest along here, and that'll really allow the shoulder blades to drop to either side. So for me, because the blanket is skinnier and it can really kind of just push right up into just the spine, it allows me to kind of just drop into those shoulder blades, get that nice big opening. Again, you've got a few different options with the feet, any way that you need to set this up. So pick your poison, and we're gonna give this solid like 5 minutes. So whatever you choose, make sure that it's something that you can stay with. You can find a little bit of quiet and stillness in, instead of getting into something and realizing that it's not comfortable enough to maintain for the amount of time that we're here. Give these first few breaths so that your body can settle against the props. And this is where you're going to get all of your kind of wiggling out of the way to make sure that your seat is in the right spot, that your neck is happy, your head is supported where it needs it. You've got your legs held by blankets, or you're in a good position against the floor. And then we're going to actively relax the front line of the body. So moving from the sternum out, letting the ribs relax to either side, allowing the collarbones to soften and widen to either side. Moving from the center line, wrapping to the sides of the body and then into the back body. We'll feel the props underneath us push us up on the inhale. And you relax all your muscles on the exhale and melt against the props. Take 2 more breaths here. And start to bring the knees in. You're going to roll over to your left. Just move some props around. Get a little closer to the floor. Give yourself just a moment here. Coming out of your heart opener. And we'll press up. All right. Set up for some twists on the ground. So you might keep your blankets. Move the bolster. You might keep blankets on either side of your mat. So once we start to bring a leg over, you can rest it on one of your props. And then we'll lie back down. So take a couple breaths here. Just kind of let your spine flatten down onto the floor. And we'll take the feet wide. Let's windshield wiper the knees side to side. See how things are feeling in the hips and the back now. And we'll extend your left leg long and bring this right knee in. Go ahead and move it across over to the left. We'll find that blanket. Shift your hips over to the right a little. And we'll let your right arm fall out to the side. Feel how the body moves with the breath. See if these exhales allow you to just settle a little bit deeper into the twist. We'll gently bring your right knee back through center. Reset your hips. Hug your knees for a moment and rock side to side against the low back. When you're ready to take your twist to the other side, right leg will extend long. Left knee will come in and cross. We'll locate our prop. Rest the leg there to give a little bit more height. And we'll let the back body settle down. Bring everything back through center. Brace up the hips. Draw the knees in. Gentle rock side to side. You can also take this into a happy baby, grabbing for the toes, the outsides of the feet. And we'll set up for Shavasana. So if you need a little bit more heart opener time, maybe take your bolster long ways. So similar to the rolled up blanket, you'll just have a wider base to work with. You might bring some blankets under the legs if you want to take a Baddha Konasana with the legs as your final resting. So it almost creates like a little nest that you can rest on. If you're feeling a little flustered, a little anxious these days, you might play with folding your blankets long ways and creating a double stack, and then just pile stuff on your belly. Anchor your belly toward the ground, and then legs can be any shape if they feel comfortable longer. So use your props. Use them generously. Use everything you have. If you have an eye pillow or something that you want to cover the eyes, if you have just a nice warm fuzzy blanket that you want to cover the body with, feel free to use that. Let's start to settle into a shape that can take you through nice deep relaxation here. We'll close the eyes once you get set up. We'll take a deep breath in through the nose. Open the mouth and let it clear. Again, breath in. Open mouth. Last one, all the way to the top. Let everything go. Resume gentle breathing pattern here. Relax the eyebrows, allow them to fall toward the ears. Relax the cheeks. Keep a little separation between your top and bottom teeth. Relax the back of the throat. We'll take these last few minutes, allowing the body to get heavier and heavier with each breath out, anchoring you to this specific and present time and place that you're in. Bring awareness back to your breath. Invite movement back into your fingers, your toes, your ankles, your wrists. We'll reach the arms overhead, full body stretch. Move your jaw around. And then roll over to your left and come into fetal position. Take a few breaths here. Let your head be the very last thing to rise. Press your way up to a comfortable seat. Bring palms to touch at heart center. Take a moment here, sitting in the quiet that we've created, lengthening through the spine, heavy in the seat. Those small moments of discomfort that we experience are oftentimes temporary, that they will eventually change. And we have to keep an eye on them because if the discomfort lasts longer, it can deepen and get worse. And that's usually a time when we need to pay more attention to ourselves. And then sometimes the discomfort is a temporary thing to the point that it goes away eventually and changes into something else. So whichever ones that you experience today in your practice, just make little mental notes of how you need to track them. And we'll see how we're feeling for next week. Let's seal our practice tonight with a single Om. We'll start with a full breath in through the nose. Sigh that breath out. Inhale to chant. Namaste. We let